You should be warned, the upcoming episode will be full of unfiltered, off-the-cuff discussion. As such, you should consider this your spoiler warning.
Hello, my name is Kyle.
And I'm Ryan.
And when our powers combine, we form
Experience Grind Podcast.
The podcast where, for better or worse, for good or bad, we grind out every experience presented to us and give you our honest, heartfelt opinions on those experiences. Yeah. And we're joined with our most favorite guest, I'd say.
Well, we've had 3, and I can't say he's my favorite.
I can. I love this guy. Yeah.
I mean, I'm married to one of the guests.
Oh, you are? That's true.
So I can't say that.
Yeah.
You know what? In the last week or two, I've been listening. I haven't listened to all of them, but I listened about 4 or 5 of them, I would say.
What was the worst
that
one?
You've been on?
The worst one? No, I do not want to hear the ones I'm on. That is the last thing I want to hear. I had the worst one?
Yeah. The worst one of the 4 that you listened to.
Why do you go negative right away? Why don't you say what's the best one?
Nathan is the most negative person.
That's not even true. I just, you know what I mean? I have a critical eye, I feel like, in a lot of ways. And, you know, it seems negative to you because you fucking freak out about everything.
I do.
Like it's the greatest thing that's ever happened.
I do. It is a bad... I'm like, oh, this is the best. Oh, did you see that? That's the best thing I've ever seen. Yeah,
it's all right.
I overhype a lot. I fully admit.
You know, it's all right to get hyped about shit, but I just don't, like, as I've gotten older especially, like, it's harder for me to, like, you know, get that excited about anything. I still like a lot of stuff, you know, but it seems like these days it's like if you're not like cumming your pants over something, then you're just not that into it. It's like one or the other, you know. It's like saw the new Star Wars. I liked it a lot. It was a fucking movie. That's it. You know, wasn't doing backflips down the aisle after it was over, you know.
I wasn't either, but I did really enjoy it.
Yeah, I thought it was that's just an example of the biggest, you know, hype.
So I want to get to the root. The 4 that you listened to, do you even remember what 4 they were?
No. I mean, I remember what but I never like sat and thought like, oh, this is definitely the worst one, you know?
Yeah.
I wasn't really rating them.
That's why I was trying to move away from it. But do you just remember what ones it was at all? Any of them?
Well, let's see. I didn't really listen to too many of the movie ones. I listened to more of the game ones.
Okay.
We did KOTOR. We talked about.
I did hear that one. Oh. Yeah, because I
the Ka.
Yeah. I did hear that one. I want to say I started the Mass Effect 2, and I don't know if I finished it. Eco and what do you call it? Shadow of the Colossus. Those 2.
Yeah.
I listened to more than 4 of them.
Choices.
Yeah.
It was more than 4 of them. It was because I was playing some game and I just sat and with the sound off and listened because the game, you know, was one I don't even remember what it was now, but it's one I'd played and I didn't really need to hear it. You know what I mean? So, but I don't really listen to a lot of podcasts these days, so because I don't have a job.
Well,
so
thanks a lot, man, for listening to ours. At least, I mean, you are easily our most frequent guest. Is this number 4?
I think it's
3 or 4.
Number 4.
Well, yeah, because you split one of them into 2, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
What was it?
It was the Batman one.
Batman.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but you were on both. I mean, it is 2 separate episodes.
I have not heard either.
And Star
of those.
Wars.
And then Star Wars.
I watched like maybe 10 to 20 seconds of the video of the Batman one.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't even
Well,
like
who cares? That view still counts.
I can't like. I just wanted to kill myself the whole. I was like, is that really what I look and sound like?
It is.
I mean,
I struggle with this every time I encounter you, and it's like, well, here we go.
Help me, someone.
Jesus, please, please take me out of this misery. No, speaking of misery, this is it's a bit of a bittersweet moment because, I mean, this could hypothetically be the last episode you're ever on too.
Yeah,
I hope not, but
I'll be back in town sometimes.
We have technology to make
internet
and Skype happen.
We totally had your mom in from North Carolina.
We can make it happen if we need.
I don't know how that shit works.
But you are, I don't know, you are entering the witness protection program because of a mob hit out on you.
That's just what I tell everyone so I don't have to talk to them anymore.
No, but really,
which is probably not the best way to go about going in the witness protection program.
Yeah, just tell everybody.
Tell everyone that you know, like, yeah, I'm going to be here under this name. So.
Yeah, so send me mail. No, you're moving up to the north part of the state of Indiana.
Yep.
And you're moving with your heterosexual life mate to start a new life. And
Well, she's going to start a new life.
You're
I'll
just gonna go
probably
mooch
be
off
just
of her.
doing whatever I do now.
yeah.
You know.
I love the fact that you hate Bloomington so much because it's a college town, and I think you're going to an even worse college town.
Well, not really. Well, I don't know because I've only been to South Bend once, and that was when we went to look at apartments a few months back. But it's a smaller school. Notre Dame is. It's got like 100, or the town has 100,000 people, give or take, and college is about 10 of that, I think. So it's not as because I use like 40 or 50,000
It's pretty
people.
fucking big, yeah.
Well, when the students leave in the summer here, the population drops by like 40 or 50%, and
It's a great time to be alive.
Yeah, that's the greatest time to live. There's like 4 months out of the year that Bloomington is awesome, and it's summer and then Christmas because everyone's gone. But
The bad
anyway.
part compared Bloomington to Notre Dame is that Notre Dame is full of uber fucking Catholics, though.
Yeah,
So I don't know how that's going to go for you.
Yeah, but you get the converse here, which are like the in-your-face liberal yuppies who
Those-
really
and
want to
also-
tell you
I have
what
a
to
feeling
do.
those
The
probably.
New York douches. You get
Yeah.
tons of those fucking guys
Yeah,
here.
that's true. Yep.
I feel like Notre Dame's probably going to have those too, though. You know?
Maybe. I don't know, though. I mean,
I think
it is-
just colleges have that, you know. I don't know though. It's probably not going to be that bad. The town is, I don't know. It looks like every other town in this state in that it is a place that used to have a lot of industry and factories, and now it doesn't. So
Yeah.
it's kind of run down. Apparently, their mayor is only like 25. I don't
their
know.
mayor or their mayor?
That's disconcerting.
Wait, what? You said the same thing twice.
I said you said mayor,
Did
Mayor
like
or
as in a female
mayor?
horse. I was
I?
making
They have a
joke.
horse
Wait.
there that's 25 years old.
Wait.
That was a terrible joke. I'm
wait,
sorry. That's
Wait. Is Mayor a female horse?
yeah,
Yeah.
mayors are.
I probably
Thought
did
the
say
Mayor
that.
was the boy horse.
Oh man, no. I think
Jeez.
the
This is how
boy is
boy-
the
Fucking
the
idiot,
Bronco.
man.
You're a fucking idiot, man. What an asshole.
All right, let's go back to the beginning of this episode where we talked about a retard cat.
Oh my god, come on.
You know what? That cat's probably fine. I don't know.
Ah, sweet cat.
She
Yeah.
was fucking awesome. That was actually I was
If the
a lot more excited about that than I thought I would be.
you know what, the owner of that cat's not going to listen to this, so
Maybe not. He really did like the show. He wants to come back on too.
that's
He
what
might be replacing you
that's what he said.
as the most frequent
But-
and also most hateful guest. No,
The cat's probably well. The cat met Robert De Niro. Isn't that what you told me the other day?
and Andrew WK and almost any other celebrity in the current zeitgeist. Is that the right word? It's probably not.
That is not.
Zeitgeist fits, kind of. Like,
really.
it can work.
Sure, it works. I don't know.
Zeitgeist. Let's just keep saying zeitgeist until it works.
All right.
No, nonetheless, we're gonna miss you, Nathan. I want to give a cheers to you, buddy. We're always glad to have you on the show. The episodes that you're on, absolutely never go the way that we have planned them to,
Nope.
and so that's a real credit to you, my friend.
Is that good or
Yeah,
bad?
yeah, that's a fucking damning compliment.
Yeah, I mean you
Like,
are
yeah, when you're on, like, nothing goes the way it should.
you
Like,
are the
we'll miss
master
you.
of the derail, and I fucking love it. So it works excellently.
Speaking of derailing things, I just wanted to comment on. I've been watching like the weirdest mix of movies in the last like 2 weeks. Let's see, I think it was last weekend or the weekend before. Me and my girlfriend watched all 3 Naked Gun films.
That's
I don't
very
know.
odd.
I don't know why. Well, it was one of those things where it's like we watched one because I hadn't seen those movies in forever, and then it popped up at the end on Hulu or whatever we were watching it on. It said Naked Gun 2.5 or whatever. I was like, well, might as well watch that one too, I guess. And then so we watched all 3 of those. Then we watched Cobra with Sylvester Stallone, which I actually really like that movie, even though it's pretty dumb. But
He
like
uses a Mac 10 in that, I believe, a lot, doesn't
he
he?
uses a lot of guns in
Yeah.
that movie.
I don't remember.
He has this really badass Colt 45 with the grip has like a image of a cobra on it.
Of course, yeah.
It looks pretty
Yeah.
cool. And it's kind of funny though because I was watching it and the lighting and the way Stallone acts in it. I was like, this could be like a Nicholas Winding Refn film.
Really, it's almost
Just-
surreal.
Yeah, in a way, or maybe I was just projecting that onto it a little bit. But like the way Stallone is, he's really quiet and he just kind of stares, sort of like Ryan Gosling does in his movies, you know. And just the way it's lit, there's a lot of really, Refn's movies a lot of times look like an Argento movie where it's like just stark colors, red or there's
very surreal. Again,
there's parts to it that kind of
neon. They're very neon. And
well, like
bright.
the Neon Demon.
That
was the recent one.
Yeah,
which I haven't seen. I know Nathan has.
Not seen it yet.
I saw
but
it.
I want to.
It was pretty weird.
Does your girlfriend listen to this show?
She might if she sees I'm on this one.
Because can I say that we saw The Hateful Eight together, and I just want to say it was a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, I thought about that. Not that I was uncomfortable, because I'm the biggest racist ever. So, no, I'm just kidding. But she doesn't. I mean, if someone was in front of us saying that to us, that'd be a different
but it's still,
story. But like,
it's just a bit.
It was. I could see why people were uncomfortable because I remember I was talking to, I think it was one of my cousins or something, and he had seen it already and I hadn't, and I was like, yeah, I'm probably gonna go see that this weekend with the girlfriend, and he was like, man, they really throw that N-word around a lot in that movie, I was like, she's an adult, she knows it's a movie that takes place in a certain time where certain things were more acceptable than they are now. Well. Yeah. Supposedly. I don't know if you look at the news today if it would seem all that different if you were black. But I don't want to get too
apolitical.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just
let's not date the podcast.
It was something. I don't know. It was
So what are we talking about this episode?
Yeah, let's get into that. Good re-bring back, Ryan. I don't know. God, I care about this.
And I also watched 48 Hours, which is another super racist movie. You guys reminded me of that. Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy, yeah. And Nick Nolte's like this really salty, like racist asshole in the movie. And it's kind of
acting for him on that part. Huh?
Probably not. But have you ever heard?
I don't know if Nick Nolte's racist.
Have you ever heard Patton Oswalt do Nick Nolte auditioning for Han Solo? Because he did apparently. Yeah. At one point, he does an impression of that. It's the funniest fucking thing. That.
But to get this back on rails again, we're going to talk about Bloodborne. Mm-hmm. What year was this game out, Ryan? I know you have notes. Do you have that?
Last year.
Was it 2013?
I don't know.
2015. Yeah.
It's been.
Was it 15?
It was like
March
or
April,
so.
Like it was very early on in the year. Right?
Early in the year.
This was actually a request by Nathan.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, he wanted to do this one because
okay.
I wanted him to come on for Metal Gear Solid 2. But you didn't want to talk about Metal Gear Solid 2 for some reason.
Well, I mean, I would have, I guess, but like.
But you requested this, and since you're moving,
Metal Gear 2 has such like the discussion about that game has been done like a lot, and I don't feel like I would ever be able to bring any kind of insight to that game's story that probably isn't already. In 1,000 videos that all repeat the same thing.
It's not been discussed by these three talentless hacks. That's my thing.
That's true. Yeah. But
so
I was just afraid if if we did one about Metal Gear Solid 2, it would just be me like parroting
fair enough
stuff that I've heard because that's how I got a lot of the understanding of that game's story that I do have is because of other people, basically. It's never anything that I particularly figured out. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So then what new can you bring to Bloodborne? Because
I don't know that I can.
Equal amount of numerous volumes.
I don't know. I just feel like Metal Gear's
explorations to Bloodborne.
Metal Gear's like 15 years older, too. So it's like maybe, I don't know. It just feels a little more contemporary, maybe. Not that that's a prerequisite to talk about something on this show, but I don't know.
So I guess
maybe it was a baseless worry.
Well, wait, I don't know. Do we want to derail again a bit? Do you want to talk about what you had brought up to be the discussion, or just roll through?
We can do whatever you think's best.
I mean, I don't know. Our discussion question for the week was your favorite boss battle. Do you have one that sticks out?
Why don't you guys go first so I can think a little bit?
I mean, I think
I saw that you guys sent me the email I thought about it a little bit, but I was actually having a hard time coming up with one for some reason.
Really?
I don't really know why.
I would say almost.
I have too many. That's my issue.
Yeah.
Well, give me yours.
I mean, really, I really like the iconic. I think it's number 5 in Shadow of the Colossus. The guy with the big sword. that you have to have him slam it
Oh,
down.
on
and
the floating island.
yeah.
Is he on the cover of the game?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so, generally,
He is.
yeah.
Or is it the very first one? I can't ever remember.
I think
beat
the
that
very
game.
first one is on the cover, but the fifth one is like the super iconic one where he's got the big stone sword and he's like super tall. Of course, they all are because they're Colossus. But
Yeah.
I think that one's probably my favorite because it's such
Of all
a.
time.
I mean, thinking right now, yeah, of all time, it's just. I mean, it is iconic. It's cool. It uses a lot of different mechanics. You've got to make things happen.
What mechanics does it use outside of the different Colossi?
Well, that's the first one where, like, I think you have to make him attack a part of the arena before his weakness is exposed. I thought that was always really cool, and it doesn't tell you that. You just see him start slamming this giant stone sword down, and then you see that you even if you climb up it, like, nothing's happening because you can't get past that bracer on his upper bicep. So, and
Yeah,
again, he's
I
just
just feel like the other Colossus also have like little quirks like that too.
to a degree. Yeah, I agree.
It
That's
probably
just
has
the
a
one
lot
that
to do
sticks
with
out to
the
me.
atmosphere of the
Yeah,
situation.
it's
too.
cool because I mean, you swim through that lake, and then you start climbing up it, and then it's just this rotating spiral up to it, and it's just, I don't know, it was really cool atmosphere. That one always really kind of stuck out to me, though. So,
Sure. Okay.
I mean,
Fair enough.
what do you got?
I mean, all right, you can criticize mine because I'm criticizing yours. I just think it's like, it's not the most memorable boss in that game, even. Like, I think there are better bosses in that game. And, like, if you're going for atmosphere, like, that final boss is, like, the most atmospheric.
I agree to an extent, but he's also the most annoying.
Oh,
and
yeah,
it's
no.
the cheapest, and that's why
Oh,
he
for
doesn't
sure.
make the list for me.
For sure.
So,
Well, I would say the same thing about the island and climbing up all the way. And if you fuck up a jump, you fall back in the water. And goddamn, that character swims so slowly. It's the most frustrating thing in the world, too.
Yeah.
But, all right, so I'm going to not go with, like, a game I've talked about in the past. Because, like, really, like, number one boss, Psycho Mantis. Metal Gear Solid. Like,
that is true. Yeah, that's a really great one.
It's one of my favorites, but we've talked about that. So I'm going with something cheesy and comical that has always stood out and is a boss I will always remember, which is the Great Mighty Pooh from
okay.
Conker's Bad Fur
Fair
Day.
enough. Good choice.
I'm pretty sure the only video game boss that sings at you. It's the same kind of thing where it's like, it's not, beat the sore spot real quick. Like, you kind of have to think and dodge attacks and then throw toilet paper in his mouth. But just the whole thing is just so brilliant. And if,
It is the most iconic boss from that game. I'll give it because I don't
Oh, for
remember
sure.
any other boss from that game.
well, I think everything else turns into like rip-offs or parodies of other things. Like, you have like the giant alien queen, which is from Aliens at the end. And that's about it. It's not great. That is definitely the best boss of Conker's. But I kind of loved the humor of it a lot, and that goes a long way. And that's why I would also, if that one didn't count, I'd say Wheatley from Portal 2. I think is fantastic. And the revelation that you have to shoot the portal onto the moon itself
Yeah,
was
it's
just like
sitting there.
fucking mind-blowing.
I also did
it the first
enjoy
time.
Wheatley's instant turn once he got power. He's like, "Oh, you know what? This is
Immediately.
amazing. I'm gonna go ahead and kill you."
Yes, yeah.
That was really cool. I mean, it's hilarious, but yeah, it works really well. So, what about you? I mean,
So
you
we
had
give
all
some-
of 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I've never played any of the games you guys are talking about right now.
Oh my god.
Oh, I've played Shadow of the Colossus. I don't
You
really.
also played Metal Gear Solid.
Oh yeah, I forgot you mentioned that one.
did.
What was the other one you mentioned? Oh, Bad Fur Day.
and
Yeah.
Portal 2.
I've played Conker for like 20 minutes one time, like 15 years ago. So, okay. Anyway, if I had to pick, I guess I'd go with something a little more contemporary. Actually from the game we're theoretically going to talk about today.
Okay, very nice. This
And
game
it's,
has amazing bosses, so it's a nice transition.
And again, this isn't necessarily my favorite, but it's one that recently is standing out to me. And it's basically when you fight, what is his name? Logarius in Castle Canehurst.
Okay.
Have you guys both played
Yeah, Castle
Bloodborne,
Cane.
right?
That's the one that I was stuck on forever.
Yeah, it's probably the coolest area of that game, just in general, just the way it looks and the way it's set up and everything.
I like the chick, the daughter of the cosmos. Who's that?
Is it
a
Vicar Amelia? Or
No,
no,
a
the
Bratus.
queen.
Does,
Oh, yeah, Aberratus or whatever.
Do we need to take a break or anything? Somebody.
Yeah, okay. There we go. Oh, Michelle's here. So I don't know. Fucking Bloodborne, right?
Well, I think I was...
Talking about
the boss.
Logarius.
Okay, so Logarius, there's nothing aside from just, basic stuff like the atmosphere of the fight that, and the area itself. It's like this kind of haunted castle.
You fight him on the roof too, right?
Yeah, he's up there, and I guess I won't spoil it. It's not much of a spoiler.
No, spoiler.
Anyway,
We have a spoiler warning. Where
Yeah, okay.
spoil
Well,
the shit.
all right. Well, he's basically, it's not even like a mandatory boss fight. So
No,
even
he's
if it is,
completely optional.
yeah, you don't have to fight him. But if you don't, you're going to be missing out on one of the best parts of the game.
We'll talk about later.
And but basically, he's up there like keeping this, for lack of a better term, a vampire like queen lady. She's the leader of the castle, and she's like the last of these. They call them vile bloods in the game. Anyway, he's killed all of them except her because she can't actually die. So what he does is he locks her up in this like room and basically sits there. And if anybody comes to try to let her out or see what's going on up here, he kills them. So when you walk up, he's just like, he looks like a giant version of like Gandalf or something.
Yeah.
And the big beard.
He's got a big ass scythe too.
Yeah, and he's just sitting there, and he's like frozen solid because Canehurst is in like this really snowy mountain area, kind of. And when he wakes up, he just starts moving, and you hear like his joints like crackling. He's this real big motherfucker. Then you fight him, and the music that plays when you fight him is probably the coolest music in the entire game, I think. And it's just a cool fight. He's pretty tough. He's not unbeatable by any means, but he's one of the harder ones in the game, I would say.
He has given me the most trouble of all the bosses, I will say.
I think
so far.
the one you were talking about, Abretus or however you say it.
Erebatus.
Yeah, the one that looks like Cthulhu, basically. She's probably the toughest in the main game until you start getting into the Chalice dungeons, which we can talk about when we get into the game, I guess. But he's definitely up there, I think. So yeah, that's pretty much my answer.
So Bloodborne, then let's just keep this rolling. Why?
Well, I'll have a musical insert.
Okay,
So
If
we'll
you
have
can
to-
play the theme of
You want
him,
the
because
Logarius?
Yeah,
if
we'll
you
do
guys
it.
can,
So
because
here it is.
it's fucking cool.
The theme of Logarius.
Yeah. I really like the image I'm seeing between those
Of you
legs,
just
too.
kicking Max.
I'm petting him with my foot, and he's digging it, or else he'd move.
You just bump, bump, bump. All right.
So coming back, so that was the Logarius. Is that the Logarius theme?
Yeah.
You guys want to talk about Cobra some more? Before?
No, I do not
Okay.
want to talk about
Never
Cobra
mind.
anymore.
It's a cool movie. It's on Hulu. Check
I've
it out.
never seen it. I will probably check it out now.
We'll have Nathan back to talk about Cobra.
We'll do a retrospective on
Yeah.
Cobra later.
The world is
45 years
demanding
later.
it.
Yes. So I guess why Bloodborne for this episode over any other Souls game? Because I would preface that Bloodborne is also made by Miyazaki. Is that
It's
correct?
basically a Dark Souls game.
Hidetaka?
In most,
Hidetaka Miyazaki,
Yeah.
who is most well known for the creation of the Souls game, starting with Demon Souls and then Dark Souls 1 and 3. He was just a producer on 2, and you can definitely feel that, I think.
2's got a weird feel.
I don't
compared to
like
the rest
2
of
at
the
all.
Not
series.
played it yet.
But
I'm not
but
haven't
anyways,
gotten very far into it either.
So why this over a Souls game?
You're asking me?
Yeah, you.
Well, basically because as much as I haven't played to completion like every Souls game. I never finished Demon Souls. Dark Souls I've finished, and the third one that just came out a couple months ago, I finished it a few times. And Bloodborne, of course, I finished. But the reason I like it so much, there's a few of them. For one, I'm not like particularly huge into like fantasy settings.
Okay.
They don't really do much for me. I like Game of Thrones, but that's about as far. I don't really care about Lord of the Rings or anything like that. And not to say they all suck or anything. It's just doesn't really click with me for whatever reason.
Absolutely.
I'm with you
understandable.
100% there.
Yeah, it's
He's
just
more the sci-fi. I like both. I've never.
I can get into anything if
Yeah.
I
you
can
know
get
if,
into fantasy if it's done well, like you said, like Game of Thrones.
yeah
but for the
anything
most
that's
part,
well
it doesn't
done
engage me.
can be good. Of course, that's all that really matters. But I find a lot of fantasy stuff to just and this is probably a really ignorant view of it because I don't know a ton about fantasy settings in general or just stories and stuff, but like it seems to be knockoffs of Lord of the Rings like 90% of the time.
A lot of times, I will agree, yeah.
And it just feels a little cheesy to me after a while.
Well, and the problem I have reading a lot of other shitty fantasies is that they always try to make things more complicated. Like they'll call a bow and arrow something completely unrelated, but it's a fucking bow and arrow. Don't fuck around. Just call it a bow and arrow. Make it easy to read, you idiots.
And even with stuff like Game of Thrones, I feel like, well, that's like I guess you would call that like a dark fantasy setting in a way. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I would.
Dark Souls is a dark fantasy setting.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones is kind of just like shitty people that exist in this world. I don't know if I'd necessarily.
There's dragons and there's fantastical elements.
I mean, it's definitely a fantasy
little high
setting,
fantasy.
but would you call it? Yeah, would you call it like dark? Because when I think of dark fantasy, I think of like. I don't even know, just like really fucking evil shit going on, and like and
I mean that's definitely Game of Thrones. How
Game
you
of,
describe
but
it.
it's I don't know, it just doesn't feel the same to me as a setting like Dark Souls, for example. And maybe those are two things that shouldn't even really be compared. But anyway, the fantasy stuff, long story short, just doesn't really do a lot for me most of the time. It has to really. And even Game of Thrones, like I'm just like, why do I like any of these people? Like, is there a person on this show to root for in any way?
Tyrion.
Tyrion's pretty awesome.
He's all right.
Tyrion,
He's
Daenerys.
a good character. There's a lot of good characters.
Jon
on the
Snow.
show.
There are so many people to root for.
Bronn.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
Bronn.
Who's the one that?
Oh, Bronn, not Bran. I was like,
Yeah,
Bran?
not Bran. Bronn.
Bronn. Yeah, I agree.
Jamie's best friend. That dude is
The
awesome.
bodyguard servant guy.
Oh yeah, he's cool. He's a shithead though.
Yeah, no, but he's awesome. He's
But that's my
great.
thing. Like even the
Yeah.
people you like, they're
Are
still
totally
assholes.
irredeemable,
Yeah,
yeah.
like Jon Snow and Sansa, I guess, are both, or Sansa, however you say it.
Shit.
Oh,
Sorry.
come on.
Why did I do that? I put it on silent.
You know what? This unprofessional shit.
It's-
don't
I mean,
have
it
time
happens.
for this.
It happens. So
So anyway, but yeah, I
It's-
just explained that for like 20 minutes.
that's
But
fair.
yeah,
The
it's like,
fantasy setting.
fantasy's just not
is
my
the-
thing.
Okay.
Now,
Is that the only reason?
no,
you
and I
prefer
should say
Bloodborne?
the reason I can actually enjoy Dark Souls' fantasy setting is because I feel like Dark Souls has a very subtle, like sci-fi element to it. Because you talk to Solaire in the first game, the dude with like the bucket helmet, the sun bro guy that
Praise the
everybody's.
sun, bro.
Oh.
Yeah, and he says things, and they're real minor things, but he's like, the way they explain why you're always seeing basically like the ghosts or the phantoms of other people is because time's real fucked up because everything's, the flames going out, everything's getting weird. So to me, it kind of suggests like every person that's playing the game is inhabiting like a parallel dimension, basically. But they kind of run together, like in a Marvel comic or something, whenever different versions of Spider-Man show up. It's like you're all the chosen undead,
Yeah.
basically, but this is your timeline, and it kind of gets mixed up. And there's just minor things like that. And,
I don't think I've ever said it on this show, but I've had this discussion on Reddit. Dark Souls, to me, it feels a lot like the Dark Tower universe in the sense that, like, it's a world that's moved on. Their time is all real fucked up. It doesn't really make sense. There's things that show up that have no explanation, that never have an explanation. They just happen. It's all very similar to me like that. I always got a real sense of Midgar from the Dark Souls universe.
Yeah, and I don't know if you could necessarily call that. Maybe a sci-fi element would be a good way to put it. It's not. It doesn't suddenly make it a sci-fi, story or anything. But yeah. So I think I like that. And Dark Souls also has a lot of horror elements to it. But the reason that I prefer Bloodborne is
You're good.
that was a good save.
And quick mouth reflex. here.
But
Don't dig any deeper than that.
But Bloodborne, obviously, if you've played, you know that it doesn't like have minor horror elements. It's full
completely
on
horror.
Well,
Yeah,
It is a
it's spoiler. So I mean, it's like Eldritch horror. It's full on Eldritch horror.
It's
and
full on.
it starts with like kind of From's their version of like kind of hokey, cheesy horror stuff. Like there's the vampire, which you could say the player character himself is pretty much a vampire, and there's people doing weird experiments like Frankenstein. There's a chick in Yosefka's clinic, and she's doing all that weird shit in there. And it's kind of a stretch, I know, but
There's werewolves.
Yeah, werewolves
It starts
for
off
sure.
with, yeah, very
and
Victorian universal monster.
then
thing.
You could
suddenly,
say almost like the Frankenstein monsters, like those big things, like lugging around the big hammers and axes.
yeah, and some of them are kind of a stretch, I know, but
Yeah.
and then suddenly it goes from that, not even really suddenly if you're paying attention, but the story definitely takes a turn towards, like you said, eldritch, like Lovecraftian type
Right,
things.
very-
Worth
it's
the
a-
Rom
yeah.
the spider.
Yeah,
after
as soon
that,
as you kill
get the
him,
insight
her,
in.
it, whatever. Then,
When you get to Bergenworth, before you even get to the spider, you start to notice things are off because you start to fight those Baxter Stockman-esque dudes that are just giant
Oh, yeah.
fly-faced motherfuckers.
Yeah. That's immediately, I was like, that's like Jeff Goldblum in The Fly.
It's like,
this
what
is
is going on
Cronenberg
here?
weird shit.
Yeah. And I before you started playing it, I told you, I was like, man, there's a really fucking weird twist that's going to come into this game.
Yeah, you did. I don't think you should have told me that because
I wished I kind of wouldn't have, but
I was expecting a lot more than that when it happened. So I was a
Okay.
little underwhelmed then because then it started happening. I was like, oh, yeah, okay, so that's it. Like, that's what it was. It was
Yeah.
just the old gods. Like, that's what it is.
I thought that was a really cool touch, though, because I didn't see it coming.
and the way that these games tell their stories, it probably might not even necessarily come off as that big of a twist anyway.
Yeah.
It's just like, all right.
I mean, I
you
hear
know?
twist, and I think Metal Gear Solid 2, where it's like, you're not Snake for 80% of this game.
Yeah.
Like, that's a twist to me. Like, this was just
Right.
like, oh, okay. I mean, it's cool, and I appreciate it.
Maybe I should have said it's going to take a sharp left.
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And even when you go to fight Vicar Amelia in that cathedral, like when you're walking in, you see kind of statues of like great one. They look like the
Yeah.
amygdala, whatever.
I say
It's the
amygdala.
Yeah.
weird, like, bean heads.
And there's a video that I recommend people look up that's kind of about this same subject, but it's this guy on YouTube named Super Bunny Hop. You guys might
Yeah,
have heard
that
of
dude
him.
is great.
I was
He's-
actually going to quote him in our upcoming Metal Gear Solid 2 episode.
Well,
because
he
he has a lot of good insights.
Yeah, that's kind of why I didn't want to talk about that game because like this guy does.
Mm-hmm.
He said everything that needs to be him and a lot. But
I'll go
anyway,
ahead and I'll paste that link right here on Nathan's face. And then
Right here, in
you click
between.
right here and
just
you can
right
go
here.
to it. So that'll be the Super Bunny Hop that he's talking about.
it's basically just about the Lovecraft himself and then the game's relation to it. And he has like you said with the Metal Gear video, it's a lot of really good insight into that connection. And so anyway, that one thing he talks about though is how most Lovecraftian stories are like, oh, there's this weird cult down in like Louisiana or something that's worshiping this crazy like space god that if you even know of its existence, it fucking drives you insane, which is a pretty cool concept.
Yeah.
But
And a concept that is explored gameplay mechanic wise in this game.
right. But in this game, it's like it's not a secret cult, and behind the scenes running everything or anything like that. It's like the main religion of Yharnam. Like they worship the great ones or whatever, which are basically the Lovecraft monsters.
Which are basically space aliens from another dimension.
Yeah, and their blood has like a healing property to it, but if you partake in it too much, you become like this werewolf type monster,
It
basically.
turns you into a beast.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's why hunters exist, is to kill them. And
Which is so fucking weird.
All right. I'm going to have to finally interject
Go ahead. We've been waiting for this.
because I know you were waiting for this, but and I can counteract things you've said because they all make my point. You're like, oh, well, I was on Reddit having a discussion. That is the quote of this game: is you're not going to learn anything from this game. You really have to do all the work with the community. Like it's almost like an ARG. Like there's no way you're going to do this on your own. You need a community like deciphering all the material in here. And I do think it's a lot more surface level than Dark Souls. Like
Yeah.
I think if you ask me, I prefer Dark Souls more when it comes to the combat, and I can get into that later. But I think Bloodborne has a little bit more of an entryway into the lore than Dark Souls. But Bloodborne is still really impenetrable if you are not like researching and delving in, because you're talking about like, oh, if they partake in this blood and the blood turns them into werewolves. I didn't know that because it's not ever discussed in this game. And like the way I'm going to be a hater, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Hate away.
Miyazaki's games, they're not for me.
Yeah.
And the reason people love them is why like they keep me at arm's length, because they're like David Lynch movies. They are just
Yeah.
complex, and I will say maybe needlessly complex. It's, you hear Dark Souls and people immediately think like, oh, well, just get wrecked, you noob. Like, get better and try harder.
Communities for these games
they're
are
bad.
like, and that's filled with shitheads.
These Souls games are like sriracha of video games. Like, it's the hipster thing. Like, everybody's like really crazy about it. Like, it's cool if you like sriracha.
They weren't
You're
always
a
that way,
douche
though, too.
If you're that way about it,
They weren't always that way. I will say.
No,
They started
it's gotten
out
worse.
It's
gotten
in the
so
beginning
bad.
when it was super niche.
Yeah.
Like, I started back at the very beginning with Demon Souls. And
Yeah.
to this day, that's the only one in this series I've ever platinumed.
Really?
Yeah. But Nathan, I know you've platinumed Bloodborne twice.
Yeah, I got a couple different PSN accounts just for
You're also the
hell of it.
only person I know that has
You have
multiple
more
accounts.
than
It's
Just
one
because
PSN
if I do want, like, if I did want to do something like that, you can just be like, oh, well, if I want to earn all the trophies again, why not? Just one of them I barely ever use, but
I'm kind of new to PSN because I never use PS3 online. I'm only doing it with PS4. But like Xbox Live has like a system where you can reset your achievements and then you can start again to 100%.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, does PSN not have
I
that?
guess not. No.
No, you can't. PSN, like, I know on Xbox Live, you can do things like change your name.
Yeah.
You can't do that on PSN.
It's horseshit. You have to pay $10 to change
do
your
it.
name.
But at least it's an option. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like with
You can't
PSN,
get
it's just like,
totally-
Really?
And I think that's a big reason why you have so many PSN accounts, because you start one and then you're like,
no, the reason I do it is because hopefully they don't listen to this, but there's certain people on certain accounts where I'm just like, it's not as big a deal anymore, but it used to be like when you know how sometimes you'd get on Xbox Live and it's
and
like,
people see
oh,
you
here's
like, hey man, what's going on?
40 people that
Yeah.
want to join a party or like play some stupid
Yeah.
game, and I'm just like,
Yes.
wanna fuck off.
Play Call of Duty with me right now. It's like, no, motherfucker. I'm playing this. Like, I don't want to do that right now.
I totally get that.
Yeah, I completely understand.
and well, to go back to your point about the
Yes.
the way these games tell stories, I can kind of understand, because like it's odd to me how much of the game's stories are usually told, and I mean by that I mean Dark Souls and Demon's Soul and all these, you know, and the way so much can be in just like a random item's description that
Yeah.
you may. I mean, when I play these games, most of the items I don't even use. Like especially in Dark Souls, most of them are. I wouldn't say worthless, because they probably do actually have like a good use. It's just you don't need it, and there's so much exploring. You know, it's just like you don't even think about the fact that you have them.
That's one of my notes is literally like the item clutter. There's just so much needless stuff. Like, especially like the one that really got me was the Molotov cocktail, the rope Molotov cocktail
One
that
you can
throws
throw
it
behind
backwards.
you.
And I was like, when are you ever gonna fucking use
I've
that?
never
Like,
used
that's
one.
Yeah.
why is that even in this game? It's
Well,
just,
one way that Bloodborne did kind of try to remedy that was they made the healing like a dedicated button instead of scrolling through. And I did read,
and that's great. I like that.
I feel like I read an interview with Miyazaki where he said basically that was the reason they did that. It's like, well, people have all these items, but they don't want to be off of their, in Dark Souls' case, the Estus flask. They don't want to be away from that because you need it a lot, especially if you're just playing these for the first time. You're getting your ass beat all the time. You're not going to scroll through all this stuff because you're too afraid to be not on your healing item. So it's like, well, we'll just assign it to its own button. That might encourage people to experiment a little bit more. I think it worked for the most part. I probably used items a little bit more in this game than I have, and it was just convenient. Yeah. So, and I don't remember where I saw that interview at, but yeah, that was a good idea, I thought. And they went back to the old way for Dark Souls 3. Which,
did they?
Yeah, that game is you scroll through.
Yeah, you still do. I mean, I don't
think it's that big of a deal.
I forgot that's how the SS flasks work, because I was playing Bloodborne and I was like lamenting. Me and my wife played this game. She loves the lore and like she's really into it and like the aesthetic and everything, and then like it gets like 40-50% in, and then she's like, it's too hard, I don't want to do it, and then you take over, Ryan. But we were talking, I was just complaining to her the entire time. I was like, why miss the Estus flask? Like, I really wish, like, you know, you had this thing that refilled every time you got to a checkpoint and all this. I forgot that it was an item slot that is gone if you're using something else.
Yeah,
and that's
which I wouldn't necessarily say that that's like a big deal for me personally, but I do like how they did it in Bloodborne more.
I think I do too
what is
now.
it, triangle that heals? It's like it's always the heal button, no matter what. And I understand they don't do that in Dark Souls because that's the button you use to switch to two-handed with your weapon, I believe.
Yeah.
And then, you know, that could lead into the next thing that I really like about Blood. I know it's kind of going all over the place here.
No, that's
but
fine.
It's really with this game, you kind of have to. There's no way to talk about it in a very linear fashion because this game's not linear.
The transformable weapons, I think. I know a lot of people complain about Bloodborne. They say, oh, well, there's only like, I think after the DLC, there's maybe like 20, 25 weapons. But every one of those weapons is at least decent. Like Dark Souls has a lot of weapons where it's just like, why?
Not only are they decent, they're also unique. Whereas
Yeah, like
in Dark
every
Souls,
one of
you're
them-
going to have like 14 short swords.
It's
Like-
not nearly that bad, but there are like 2 or 3 item or weapons in Bloodborne that I felt were a little too similar. But like otherwise, you're like, that's a big giant fucking wheel, or this is like a giant bone saw cleaver thing.
Here's a short
And-
sword that's suddenly a fucking massive hammer.
Yeah,
And you know-
you have like a steak pile driver thing that shoots out a steak. Like they really do some unique weapons here, and the minimization of that, like getting it down to like a few really good, unique, interesting weapons, is a fantastic choice.
Yeah.
I really do like that.
And yeah, like you're saying, there's so many like samey kind of weapons in Dark Souls, which there's some cool weapons in Dark Souls, don't get me wrong, but like, you know, you have your ultra great swords. They have different movesets and stuff, for an example, but they have their different movesets, but they're all basically, I'm going to be swinging this really slow thing around, and whatever, you know, they're fine for that setting, but I think if you had Bloodborne, but you just had weapons like that, it just wouldn't really, you know, and it also kind of, to me, Bloodborne is more about, as much as a Dark Souls, or a Souls game can at least, I don't think that you're meant to feel as helpless as you do in Dark Souls, as you in Bloodborne, because obviously you're still pretty weak at the beginning of the game, but like
You are a
it
master
gives you
hunter.
there's like
Yeah.
a guy here and he's like, all right, I'm going to give you one of these 3 weapons right off the bat, and they're all pretty cool, and they're all, I mean, the saw cleaver is one of the best weapons in the game, you know, and the axe
I
is
used the threaded cane because that's what
man,
Laura wanted.
That's
know,
the hardest one.
That's still a solid weapon though.
Yeah,
like
but
none
it's
of
still
those
the hardest
weapons
to
suck.
use.
It's not like most games would give you like, say you're playing, I don't know, Destiny or something. Like the first gun you get fucking sucks.
Yeah.
And then you
Karstov,
immediately
by the way, for all my
immediately
Destiny friends, Karstov.
you immediately move on because you know that gun sucks, and you find better things pretty quickly. Well, theoretically, I haven't played Destiny in a while, but I remember not.
It is a
finding
loot
shit
grind.
ever.
Yeah.
But
I waited till the Taken King, and you find stuff very quickly
I
after they
it does
updated
change.
it.
I didn't ever get to. But anyway, I don't want to digress too much. But you guys are really. We need to stay on topic, guys. All right.
Yes,
damn it.
God damn it.
I mean,
Let's forget that entire 10-minute intro, Nathan. God damn it.
guys, can we just please talk about Bloodborne?
So, yeah, all right. So here's,
Well, wait.
Yeah,
I
go
was,
ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to finish. But to me, like, Bloodborne, you still are a weakling in comparison to how you'll end up, and compared to a lot of the monsters, especially, and the enemies. But your guy is a much more capable fighter than you are in Dark. Because, like, you're way faster. The game is, like, constantly encouraging you to... If you're going from Dark Souls to this game, it's like, well, I'm used to having my shield and being safe, relatively safe behind it, and I can kind of
You have to be more aggressive.
Yeah, it's
and
like-
that's the regaining health system plays
right,
into that.
like your character basically has like a bloodlust in this game, and it's storyline wise, and that's how they're really good at tying the world into the gameplay mechanics. You know what I mean? Because you're encouraged to like like, oh, well, if you just keep slashing at this thing after it's dead, you're going to get some of your health back, and that's really useful. Obviously, you want as much health back as you can get, so just keep fucking killing him, even though he's laying there dead on the ground, and there's another thing about the insight. When you see a monster, it, like I said earlier, when Lovecraft's characters would see his monsters, they would go insane. It's not
awesome.
quite as extreme in this game, but there's the insight can be used for a lot of things, but it's also, if the higher it is, the higher your frenzy, or the lower your frenzy resistance gets, which frenzy's a status, what's the word I'm looking for?
Status effect.
Yeah, status
poison
effect.
Or
Yeah, which basically kills you if you get
Or
it.
does it
gets
really
you
quickly.
really close
Yeah,
to death.
like if you're not full health and you don't have like a fair amount of health, it'll probably just kill you.
Which is why I hate those fucking blood-sucking head motherfuckers.
Well, there's those and
This is like
the lantern
the
things,
giant eye people.
Yeah.
The
Winter
big eye
lanterns
heads.
are fucking crazy.
which
They
those
drive
things
me.
have the same dress on as the doll in the.
They do, and
Yeah.
that's it's.
I don't know
goes
what
to
that means
lore.
exactly, but
And that's the thing is like this game finishes and I'm just like, all right, so I've been hit over the head with themes about like pregnancy and the female body. There's vaginal monsters and you have to collect the 3 umbilical cords to get the ending. And then who's the queen? Yarnum, the blood queen, has like the white dress at the end. You see her in like the blood spot where there's probably an abortion or a miscarriage that happened or
C-section.
something. And like the second to last boss is the wet nurse, and you have all these like thematic things, but like the game ends, I'm like, what the fuck? Like there's still like I could not tell you like what any of it means. And I specifically did not go onto the forums to research because like I did want this to be a true experience where it's me trying to explore as much as I can. And I actually did this with this game. Dark Souls, I was like, I don't want to stray off the path because like I'm afraid of dying. Like I want to beat it and just be done because like it is so hard. This one, I went branching paths and I still didn't find anything. You were talking about the Canehurst Castle earlier. I never fucking got there, and I tried. Like I tried to do 100% of the stuff in this game, and
It's
you still
impossible without
can't.
a guide. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's so many optional bosses too. Like who's?
I'll
who's
tell
the
you,
original
there's
beast?
only like 6 that you have
Yeah.
to fight.
Yeah.
I think it's Gascoigne, the dude in the cemetery, Amelia,
Vicar Amelia. You
the Shadows of Yarnum, those 3 dudes in the graveyard, or not a graveyard, the woods,
You have
like
to-
the Forbidden Woods.
I think you have to fight Rom, the
You
spider.
have to, because
You have to
you
fight
you fight him or her, whatever, right
And-
after the Shadows, and then Mikolash,
Mikolash.
who's that's
host
one of the
of
worst
Nightmare.
boss fights ever. I think I hated
It
that.
is terrible. Yeah.
Bosses are hit and miss. This is my notes.
I like every
Highlights. Vicar Amelia, I think, is a fantastic just aesthetic design. Mikolash, Host of the Nightmare, because at least it does something different and stands out. Whereas, like,
Once you learn how to chase
Yeah.
him around, it's not that bad. But the first time I fought him, I was just running around. I was like, "What the fuck are you supposed to do here?"
all of. I'm such a hater.
No, it's
And I don't really mean to be because I'd say like my experience with this game was overall fine to good. Like I was a little
and it's weird, 'cause
disappointed with some
You did
of
enjoy
it.
Dark Souls, didn't you?
I think looking back, I enjoyed Dark Souls more than Bloodborne. And I think that goes a lot to like the gameplay mechanics. You're talking about like the shield and you're weaker. Like I kind of like that slower pace where you have the shield to like stop and think about attacks and you can get back and like react more. Whereas this game is very twitchy compared to Dark Souls. And that's not a bad thing. It's not damning. Like a lot of people do prefer this style. I just don't myself. But when it comes to the bosses, like I didn't see with Bulgarius, like because that was the Canehurst, and I completely missed that side quest. But like the rest of the bosses, like there are a few highlights, but like I thought they all kind of just blend together. They just become like big blobby beasts of just bodies or werewolf or hair, and that's it. Because like this game is very, very, very visually impressive when it comes to the technical aspects. Like they render hair and cloth and blood so well. But when it comes to like the actual art design and the aesthetics, I think a lot of it's a little bit repetitive. There's not.
There are a lot of like city,
Yes. Yeah.
Victorian city settings, and that is a complaint I've heard from other people too. And
and I just think that carries into the boss design too.
And it's
is I think some of the boss designs are a little repetitive.
there's no like
especially the hunters. The hunters, I could not tell you how to distinguish one from another. I think they all just bleed together.
Except for the chick that wears the crow outfit.
Eileen the Crow, and then the very last guy.
Gearman.
Which, if we want to spoiler or not, but like the very final hunter of the game is visually different. But all of the other ones in the middle just kind of bleed together.
There are just a lot of like random hunters walking around, which there's more that like stand out. Like the guy at the mounted machine gun in Old Yarnum, Jura, I think his name is. He stands out. And I hate that fucking guy so much, but I kill him every time.
I hate that whole fucking section of the game.
I do too, and I think it's the labyrinthian level design. It becomes really easy to get lost and confused.
There, I feel too.
That's when the game takes like this absurd difficulty spike.
Yeah.
Because it's that, and then you go to like the Nightmare Menses, which again is more onto the theme of the periods and the fertility stuff. But that it just becomes so insanely hard and obtuse. But going back to that guy in the tower with that mounted gun, like the situation is very different and unique, but like you look at that character and like I can't tell you what he even fucking looked like. I just remember the gun.
You can't really, I mean, you see him, but you can also buy his clothing from the Insight shop in
which I think
in
we
the
did,
old Hunter's, or what is it called, the Hunter's Dream. And so yeah, that's how because he's got like the eye patch sort of thing over him, and the gray kind of ash colored clothing, which I think he stands out all right. But I get what you're saying, like just the random ones that show up occasionally to fight you, like
because
they're not
a lot,
but they're pretty much just like faceless, nameless characters. They're not necessarily meant to like they don't talk to you, and they don't like they fight you, but. And that's kind of the thing too.
They're like
in the
mini
story.
bosses.
Yeah,
they're not full on bosses, but they're
I feel
mini
like
bosses.
a lot of times they're harder than most
I do
of the
too.
bosses.
They're
like
very annoying.
the hardest enemy in the
I
game,
agree.
I think,
is the guy that kills Eileen the Crow.
yeah, he's
Yeah,
got
that
like
dude's
the
a
metal
fucking
Canehurst
prick,
mask
man.
and the crow feather garb on.
Dude, he's a fucking hardcore
he uses
fucker.
he uses the Chikage, the katana, which I guess if you didn't go to Canehurst, you probably never saw. But like,
Nope, I guess I didn't.
yeah, and you have to follow
You also-
Eileen's,
quest line.
which hers isn't really that complex. Once you only talk to her like 3 times,
Yeah.
and you don't have to really. Well, you got to fight that one dude where you fought Gascoigne.
Yeah.
What's his name?
I think that's
Henrik.
where I lost her the first time.
I'll tell you, I missed the Canehurst Castle completely because I did research afterwards.
You should, if you ever just
Go
bored,
back,
check
yeah.
it out because it's probably the coolest area of the game.
I missed the Upper Cathedral Ward,
That part's tough.
and then I did none of the Yasefka stuff. Like, I did not follow up on her quest line at all. Like, I just couldn't find her again.
I don't remember. It's been a while since I played the game, but do you have a save just like at the end of the game or anything?
The only save I guess I have is after beating it. I don't know
Okay,
if it.
so you got to start over again.
Yeah, so I'll have to do New Game Plus to go in.
It's a lot
Find
easier
it.
the second time around, especially. Just out of curiosity, what weapons and stuff were you?
The weapon I went was one of the saw cleavers because I know there's the starting one that's like a bone saw thing, but it was one of the ones you have to buy a
The
second
saw
time.
spear?
It might have been, yeah.
Because like the saw cleaver is more like rectangular.
It's this thing, and then it opens up like a switchblade knife.
Yeah, and it's got like a pointed blade as opposed
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
squared off one.
Yeah, that's
the
what I
saw
used.
spear. Those two weapons. The only real difference is the move set is different because I think the spear has like a stabbing,
Yeah.
like an R2.
Yeah.
I used
That's what I
the
did.
saw spear for most of the game. Well, actually, I take that back.
That's what I
I used the
used.
hunter axe.
Okay, yeah, that's a good weapon.
I did
Yeah.
the saw spear, and then at the very end, I was playing around with the double sword combination. The
Yeah.
one that's a sword and then sword and gun, and
Oh,
then you
you-
can do 2 swords and then lose your
Oh,
I
what
don't
is
Did
that?
you get it in the
what's called.
DLC?
gun. No, I did
No?
not get the
Okay.
DLC.
So I'm thinking of the Rikuyo or
It wasn't that. It was a specific name, and it ended with sword. It was like something sword.
Yeah.
But it was just a regular sword, and you had your gun for the deflection. And then your alternate was you put the gun away and you have 2 swords, and it's like very quick. And I was
Also,
experimenting with that.
Eileen's weapon is
Oh,
like
the
that.
Blade of Mercy.
Yes, that's what it is.
Okay.
Blade of
Yeah.
Mercy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's her weapon actually.
Yeah, it's a really cool one. And I like that. It's really fast.
Yes, and
Yeah.
that's what I go to in these games. Like I'm never like the tank, big, strong hits. Like I'm the quick, so I can get in there real quick and then back away if I need to. And
You know, speaking of equipment in this game, that one thing that Dark Souls 3 did take from Bloodborne is, and I didn't even really notice it in Dark Souls 3 till I was like probably at least halfway through the game the first time, was that you don't upgrade your armor in 3. Like, and
Really?
you don't,
don't do it
Bloodborne's
here.
Bloodborne's armor does make a difference as far as like the stats go, but there's
the
no weight
resistance,
limit.
when you get to the resistance stuff.
Yeah, but there's no weight limit in the game for rollings because you're always doing the quick rolls. I think I've heard that there is one that makes it like a hidden weight limit thing that determines how fast your stamina rebuilds. But if there is,
Really?
I've never noticed it.
On Dark Souls or on Bloodborne?
Bloodborne, there definitely is in Dark Souls, but in Bloodborne, like as far as like how quick your character can move, it doesn't matter what you've got equipped. You could have the Logarius wheel and the Holy
you're gonna
Blade,
move
and you're
fast
still
as
going to
hell.
move just as quick, And so I thought that was interesting because I remember I've never really played Dark Souls 2 that much, but I know in 1 you upgraded armor if you wanted to, which I don't think anybody ever does. So I think that's why they just said, well, if nobody's going to do this,
I don't think I did when I played through Dark Souls.
I think I did just because I
definitely leveled up
ran,
my
I had
weapons.
stuff and I had the
remember
weapons I
upgrading my
wanted.
swords and my shields, but I
Yeah.
don't remember doing armor.
You can do armor in the first one, but 3 they got rid of that because I think it's some people might look at it as simplifying things a little too much, which whatever. But to me, it's just like, well, if you just want to wear armor because it looks cool, it's still going to make a difference in your stats. But at least you don't have to worry about like leveling it up and like it's just pointless to have that many things to level up. I think they really
call that-
refined
I agree.
it with 3. I think.
Yeah.
We call that fashion souls.
Yeah.
And that's another thing too is I don't know if I am as much of a fan of the leveling system in Bloodborne. I don't remember how it was in Dark Souls, but like the different types of blood crystals you have to use, I get kind of like the difficulty wall that enforces. Like, well, we don't want you to level up to level 10 on this weapon, so you can do the first 3 levels. And then once you get to this area, then you can find these new types of crystals that will
That's the
level
way
up.
it works in Dark Souls as well.
Is it?
Yeah, it's like in Dark Souls,
I think
it's
it's just
Titanite, and in this
Yeah,
game,
that's
it's like
right.
blood.
That's
Titanite
right.
slabs, chunks,
Yep.
and
I just think it's a little needlessly complicated. Like I get the play the game the way the maker wants you to, but at the same time, like I don't know if I like that anymore, especially like being adult with limited time.
Yeah.
Like I'll
Well,
tell
that's-
you,
yeah.
the most frustrated part is not the difficulty. It's like I only have 2 hours to play a game tonight because my life's fucking busy, and this might be the only 2 hours I get all week. And so if I'm playing an hour and a half and then I fucking die and start over, like sure, I fucking learned, but I also lost an hour and a half of like game time that I could put to something else. So I kind of everybody's like beating their chest about like how difficult this game is, and it's like, oh, it's like the back in the old days. Oh, you mean when you were a fucking child and you had all the time in the world? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's super cool if this is gonna be your main game for life. But like, I kind of like how Nintendo does it, where it's like we're gonna make games like I'm thinking specifically like Super Mario World, 3D
with the
World.
white raccoon suit.
Yes, like you know what? That easy option is there if you need it. Or you can get through the game and it's probably pretty easy or normal or whatever. You have to put in a little bit of work, not too much. But if you want to get these stars, to get all 3 stars, you have to really do some difficult work. And like that's kind of how I like games. Like make it more accessible for people. Like I'm not saying like
So, are you
tutorials. I'm not saying tutorials.
But are you one of the
like,
types that would advocate for a difficulty system for these types of games?
No.
Okay.
No, I just think it could be reworked with like how you level up. Like maybe let the leveling be easier. Let it be a system that could be used if needed. But like don't overutilize like tutorials. Don't have a difficulty system. Make some of the harder bosses like optional. Like the Canehurst Castle that I never fucking found. Like make Logarius like the hardest boss in the game or something. Like Kingdom Hearts even. Like there's Sephiroth in the first Kingdom Hearts game and he's like the hardest thing in the world. You don't have to fucking do it, but it's there for people who really want to. And
Fair
I
enough,
think that's
yeah.
how the difficulty should be in these games. I do understand why people do gravitate towards it. It's hard for me at this point in my life.
Bro. It's not your cup of tea.
But the thing is, it's so fucking frustrating because like I love the world and I love everything. I do want to, but like at the same time, the game's a little impenetrable that it gets to the point where like I don't want to explore and I don't want to do this because like I only have so much time. I kind of just had to push forward, and it's a hard give and take, and I don't know. You're right. I mean, ultimately, I can complain all I want to, but this game is not meant for me, and there are millions of people who love the Souls games for what they are, and I'm so happy for them. And I just wish it was more for me. Because I do like what I see there, and I want to love this game. I want to love all these games, but they're just not quite there. I would not say they're bad games, and I would not shit on them, but I don't know. That's kind of my...
I think that we commented earlier that the community of these games is just... I mean, there's cool people in it.
I was
like
going to say, you can't say they're all terrible because there are some really cool and really
some
people that want to help out and inform. Yeah, and I'm saying more like him.
Like I said, sriracha is delicious, and definitely people like it. But there are people who are fucking obnoxious about it, and that's how... And it's with anything on the internet. Like, you're only going to hear the worst of the worst. You're not going to hear the cool people. Yeah, exactly. And that's what you hear with the Souls community. You hear the shitty fucking people.
Get more good, so scrub.
Yeah, you hear that more than, like, the actual helpful people. And there are. I will say, while we're still talking about Bloodborne, the multiplayer... I thought was a little bit more broken than it was in Dark Souls.
Yeah, it's a lot harder to get to work.
I never, like, what is the beckoning bell the one you use to get
There's also just people? Not, I mean, especially if you just played it recently, like Dark Souls 3 just came out, so a lot of the community is probably there. Because I didn't get to play Bloodborne until about 6 months after it came out.
I just played it a month to 2 months ago.
Yeah, so like, and I could still find, I don't really do PvP in these games that much. I'll do it occasionally just out of boredom, but it's not the focus for me.
Yeah.
But as far as finding like co-op partners or something, I could really find them on occasion because the game was still fairly active. But like
when I played it at launch, and I found it depending on bosses and where everybody else in the world was at that point. But I remember like the very first boss, the dude on the bridge. What is his fucking name? The Cleric Beast.
Beast, yeah.
Dude, I helped like probably 15 people fight that in one night just because I knew what to do, and it was a fun boss fight, and I was like, fuck it, I got this bell.
I was doing that the other night.
I'll tell you, as soon as I got the bell, I put it on. I had not one single person help me through the entire game, and I had it on the entire time, but I had...
But were you ringing it?
And dozens, yes.
Okay, sorry.
Constantly. But I had dozens and dozens and dozens of PvPers come in and just fucking make my life harder.
Again, at that point, when people have moved on.
And it really kicks up, surprisingly, towards the end of the game, where it's already super hard. And like I was like 90% of the way done, but that last 10% was like half of my fucking game play time.
Was people invading?
People coming in, and it's already like ramped up in difficulty. So it just... What was like a pretty leisurely, pleasant experience really left a shitty, sour taste in my mouth because of that at the end. So I will put that out there too. Like maybe some of my negative feelings are because like that last 10% of the game is ridiculously tough.
After you fight all the PvP, it gets a lot harder.
Yeah.
Like when you go into, what is that area called? Before the Nightmare of Mensis, when you fight...
is it the
one reborn?
The library? No.
Which is like the...
I see. I don't know it well enough.
The Souls game kind of have that tradition of having a bunch of people around a place where you fight someone, and they're either buffing the boss up or shooting shit at you or something.
Oh, like the arena, and you have all the.
It's like the one in Demon Souls.
It's the one reborn. Is it that one?
Yeah, and it looks like just a bunch of like bodies, basically like. Yeah, but, it's like the boss in Demon Souls when you're fighting the big Tower Knight, I think it's called, and you have to go around and kill those dudes with the
all the archers,
crossbows,
the crossbow dudes.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, similar setup at least, but it's like the bell ringing women and they're like shooting fireballs and shit.
That is when they come about too. Is that
and that part of the game is, I would say it's probably where the game really kind of ramps up. Like,
You're talking like that church level, and there's all the amygdalas too, right? And there's the bell ringing women that are bringing in the people made of blood.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
part is very fucking annoying too.
And again, it's just very confusing level design wise, because you're
Where
going
can
up
I
and
go?
down all
Yeah.
kinds of stairs and into towers, and you're closed off, and then you go back out to open, and like, and because everything looks the same aesthetically, like it doesn't distinguish itself visually. You're just
That's-
like, I've been here,
It's
right?
like right before you get to Mikolesh, because you start seeing all the people with the cage heads.
Yeah.
the Nightmare of Mensis. Because you kill the one reborn, and then you go into this room, and it transports you to there, I think, if I remember right. It's
transports
been a
you
while
up to
since I
Nightmare
played
of
it, but
Mensis.
yeah. Nightmare of Mensis is probably...
It's like, that's where I got hard stopped. It wasn't
That
like,
was a tough part.
I felt like I was always kind of making progress, and it was always like slow going. But like when I got to Nightmare of Mensis with that brain in the tower flashing you the frenzy, that's when like immediately it was like, well, here's a 3-hour game session where I made no fucking progress, and I turn off, and maybe I'll try it again fucking next week, and we'll see how it goes.
That part is very, very, very unforgiving, and that's the way all Souls games.
It's also pretty much the last part of the game.
It is,
So,
and that's like I said, like that last 10% gets super difficult.
because that technically can be the last part of the game. If you, depending on a decision you make, I won't spoil it. But when you talk to the guy at the end, and he gives you like a couple options.
Yeah,
Depending on what you do there,
you could
was it
go the easy
Murgo's
route
wet
and
nurse is
the
going to
final
be
boss, or
yeah.
maybe not.
Yeah, there could be 2 more after that if you do certain things.
It's either 0, 1 more boss, or 2 more bosses,
Right.
depending on how you pick. And I'll say my ending was the 1 more boss.
So you didn't
Because
use the
I didn't have the 3 umbilical cords, because I
Okay.
completely, and I told Nathan while you're in the bathroom, I completely missed ISF's whole quest line, so I didn't get
There's
the umbilical
technically
cord.
there's 4 of them in the game. You only need 3 though.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, there's one.
Because I know Ariana.
There's one in Yusefka's clinic. There's one
Her.
Ariana gives you when she gives birth to that weird baby thing. Where's the other one?
You get
There's one in
one-
the old hunter's dream that you find. It's like an optional area too.
Oh, so I didn't know that. I know one's like storyline
Where's the other
progression.
one
You
at?
get one. I think it's Murgo's wet nurse. You get one just
Yeah,
for
I
meeting
think
her.
she drops one
You
too, or
get
it
one
drops one.
automatically.
How many people
you
did you
play through.
send to the safe zone, the church?
Just
area?
Ariana.
Just Ariana. That was
That's
the
the
only
only one I could find.
I sent
to
her.
do.
I sent the old lady, and I didn't know this because I didn't follow a guide, but I sent the dude that turns into a beast there.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
That dude is a fucking asshole. Because there's a guy that looks like a person, but he's really a beast that's pretending to be a human.
Okay.
And you send him there, and he'll kill everybody there too, right?
After a while, he'll start killing people in the.
But you don't know who's doing it. They just
Yeah.
start dying.
Yeah.
And then you talk to him outside, and he reveals his true nature, and he turns
He's
into a
fucking
super fucking hard
tough,
boss.
yeah.
Yeah, it's so hard.
Oh,
He's
no, I missed that.
That version of the beast version of him is like a Chalice dungeon boss.
Yeah,
occasionally
yeah.
because Chalice dungeons are just like generic versions of monsters.
You go ahead and talk about the Chalice Dungeons, because I did none of them. Because as soon as I finished with Bloodborne, I was like, I'm done. I don't want to do any more extra dungeons or whatever. So you guys talk about the Chalice Dungeons. I'm going to go pee.
Go ahead.
All right,
I
well,
thought, what is it? It's the watchdog of. It's like one of the first Chalice dungeon bosses, and it's like a flame-breathing dog.
yeah,
thing.
I know what you're talking about. I
It
can't
reminds me
remember
a
what
lot
it's
of the thing you fight on the bridge in Dark Souls 3, actually.
called. Oh yeah, the big like kind of.
The six-eyed dragon
Yeah,
monster sort of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, that reminds
They have
me
like
a
the
lot
big
of
chest that opens up like the gaping dragon.
Yeah,
kinda,
yeah, yeah.
In Dark Souls 1.
But it's like the watchdog of Karen, I think. Or Karan, something I want to say.
Yeah, I don't remember what they're called, but Chalice dungeons are a weird thing because they put them in there just to, I think, basically extend the life of the game after you finish it.
To
You know,
be
it's
a
like,
challenge.
Yeah, and some of them are
They
pretty
are
challenging.
a fucking
But like,
challenge, yeah.
if you don't start doing them till after your guy's like pretty buff, you know, and you've got all the weapons leveled up that you need, those first like, I don't know, first several Chalice dungeons.
How many do you
go
have to
through,
beat to get the trophy? It's like 10?
something like that, probably.
I
I
think.
don't remember.
But there's more than that.
It's hard to do. Oh yeah, there's way more than that. There's some I never even fucked with just because I thought they were boring. But basically, like you can make you have to have items that you find throughout the game or in other Chalice dungeons, which like oh, here's the ritual blood that you find, and there's different levels of that ritual blood, 1, 2, up to 5, I think.
And all the different chalice or cups.
Yeah, and there's just different kinds of items that you have to have. So, like, if you want to do those chalice dungeons to get the platinum trophy, you're going to do a lot of them. You know what I mean? And you're going to have to probably farm a little bit, which I'm not doing a very good job of explaining chalice dungeons, but they're basically just, most of them are like randomly generated and they feel that way. They're just like
they're very
copy pasted hallways and like
very stark.
Some of them are always the same, but a lot of them are just like
they're a good idea in concept, but not in execution.
I wouldn't have done more than like a couple of them unless I had to, just to see all the enemies of the game, basically.
Well, and that is a cool thing that I like about it, but it's not enough incentive. But there are enemies in chalice dungeons which you will never see in the regular storyline.
Enemies or bosses?
Both.
There's a couple different kinds of enemies that you don't really see. And I can think of a few, but a lot of the bosses are just recycled from the main game.
But there are some that
That's
are
what I
completely
thought would
unique.
be it. I didn't.
Yeah.
I did not think they would actually put in.
But there are for real enemies that you will never see in the game
Yeah.
too. Like those big. There's like 3 fat brother dudes.
Yeah. They're
There's
like these big fat guys that one of them has like a gun, like this big gun. The other one's got like a sword, and I don't remember what the other
I
one
think
is.
the other one's
but
got like a big shield or maybe a big hammer.
something like that, and they're mostly pretty easy for the
They're
most
very
part.
once you figure them out, like most things in these games.
But the thing about the chalice, to get the trophy, if you want it, the platinum, you have to finish a certain amount of them. And there's one called the defiled something. I don't remember what it's. And you have to fight amygdala with half of your health, because this dungeon, when you're in it, your health is halved in every part of it. But when you get to this boss, it can basically one-shot you. Even if you had a shitload of health, so it was cut down and you still had a fair amount, it would probably still kill you most of the time in one hit. Now, that's probably the only part of this game that I got really hung up on. And it was mostly just because I'd get really pissed off at it. Because, you could be fighting this thing for like 10 or 15 minutes and you don't do shit damage to it either. Like you're just constantly wailing on it and it's not doing anything. And it can just end the fight immediately if you're not careful, And probably only actually fought it like a total of 15 or 20 times, but each one of those was at least 5 minutes a piece, And it's just one of the most frustrating things I've ever done in a game, I think. But going back to what you're talking about with the difficulty of these games, like, I don't disagree that they're obviously not new player friendly. You know what I mean? I do think that they've been making them easier as they've went along, though. Like Demon Souls is one of the most obtuse fucking
Demon
games.
Souls is so fucking ridiculous.
I just completely skipped it.
Yeah,
it's okay.
They don't explain a fucking thing in that game, and there's so many like NPC interactions that you can just completely miss, or they're so easy to fuck up, or you might not even ever find them. You know what I mean? And Dark Souls is kind of like that, but they made it a little more accessible, I guess. I haven't played Dark Souls 2, but I know Dark Souls 3, like I was saying, they got rid of a lot of the armor stuff. Like, it's a lot more refined as far as that goes. And but as far as the difficulty of the games, I didn't finish Demon Souls, but it's fairly tough. But I feel like once you finish one of them, the rest of them are going to be way easier. Because it's sort of like playing a Zelda game in that, like, the first time you ever played a Zelda, you're probably like, I don't know what the fuck to do. I'm lost. I don't understand how anything works, really. But then you kind of get that Zelda logic, for lack of a better term, I guess. But like,
No, that's
where it's like,
that's really
oh,
good.
well, of course I have to push the block here. But if you're showing that for the first time to anyone else, it'd be like, so you got to shoot an arrow through that torch and hit this thing across the, like, I would have never fucking thought of that. And just stuff like that, And the Souls games and Bloodborne are like that too. It's like, once you figure out like the dodging and just, that you can't sit there and wail on something for too long because it's probably going to do something to stop you.
And just how the game punishes you too.
Yeah,
like,
and, like,
immediately from Bloodborne out the gate, like,
you learn not
I'm
to-
easing around corners, looking around because I know how the game works.
I think
too.
most people, the first time they played a Souls game, they're walking around like this with a shield up, just constantly like, all right, what's about to jump out here and fucking kill me next,
And then something's going to slam that shield in themselves to the ground.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I played Dark Souls, I hadn't played, or I think I'd played Demon Souls for like a really short time, but Dark Souls was the first one I really got into. And I would get to like, what's the first area? The Undead Burg or whatever? Or Undead,
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
The Undead Burg.
And, well, I did like everybody else does, where you run down into the graveyard with the skeletons and they fuck you up like immediately.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
Down into the catacombs.
I think everyone does that at least once. Because it's like most games, it's like, well, I'm facing this way. I'm looking at a staircase. That's probably where I go. And it's not, And but I remember going to the Undead Burg and just walking through there and just getting fucked up by the most basic enemies in the game, the hollowed people or whatever.
Yeah, the skeletons. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just like, what the fuck are you supposed to do here? Like, I can't get 10 feet into this game without just getting destroyed, And but after a while, like, I didn't really think about it, but like I was playing it again, I don't know, a little while after that, after I'd finished the game, and it's just like, you're not going to fucking die on those things anymore. You know what I mean? You're not going to die on bullshit. Occasionally, maybe.
But that's the thing that I do like about it is that if you do just laze around and fuck about, you totally can still get your ass kicked pretty quickly.
The dudes that aren't even knights, just the hollows and like the fucking togas, and they have like broken swords. You get like 5 of those things.
They will fucking wreck you.
They can kill you in like a couple seconds. But, and I'm not saying it would never happen to me again, but it happens with way less often.
Because you know what's to come, and that's the thing that Souls games really capitalize on, is teaching you through failure. Like, oh, well, that fucking kicked my ass. I'm obviously not supposed to do that.
It rewards patience.
Yeah.
Like, this game really rewards patience.
The consequences for dying in these games isn't really as bad as it seems either. Like, you're not going to lose too much, like, distance, because most of the areas are actually fairly short. It's the time you spend looking around them that makes them seem longer. But if you start at like Central Yarnum and go to Gascoigne, that's not really that long of a distance, really. And especially once you know how to not get murdered every 5 seconds, like you're just going to go through it and it take you 5 minutes, you know what I mean? And so yeah, and Bloodborne also has pretty generous invincibility frames on the dodging.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe,
Yeah.
and I don't know, like I'm sure someone out there knows the answer to this, but like it's definitely different from the Dark Souls games. I don't know if the Dark Souls games have gotten more like that as they've went on, because rolling, you only roll in the other ones unless you got that one ring.
Demon Souls had massive invincibility frames. That's
Yeah,
what
and
I
like,
remember about that game.
and
so fucking forgiving.
But
That's a good
Bloodborne,
thing,
it's like
yeah.
they know that you have to have dodging down. It's like, because at least if you can't roll very well, you're not good at dodging. At least you have a shield in Dark Souls, but in Bloodborne, you don't have it. It's either parry it or dodge it. So they kind of made it a little more.
You do the same thing in Bloodborne. You just parry with the gun now.
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, you can either do that or you can dodge. There's no shield. Well, there is a shield, but it's not. It's a joke weapon,
Yep.
I think it was kind of a...
Fuck that troll.
Yeah.
There is one.
Did you fall for it?
I fell for that. I was super pissed.
It has its uses, actually.
Does it?
I've read... I've never used it myself, but in PvP, people use it. There's a gun in the game called the Evelyn, which is super powerful. It's probably a little overpowered. And a lot of people use that shield in that situation because it can block bullets. Because this gun, I don't want to get too much into it, but like basically it levels off of your blood tinge stat. And if you get that up to like 50, then this gun, along with the bone marrow ash, you remember that stuff?
Yeah, to make your bullets stronger.
I mean, it'll do so much damage. And a lot of people use it to counteract that. And there is also another shield that actually has use, or a useful function rather, in the DLC, the Old Hunters.
Okay.
I don't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but it can block like magic stuff real well. I've never really used it. Once you get used to not having a shield, it's kind of, you don't really think about it. But anyway, like Bloodborne is, encouraging you to be more aggressive. So it kind of needs to give you the tools to do that. You couldn't have the same frames of invincibility where they're I think they must be much lower in the Souls games, because you're going to you're getting your ass kicked, because that's your only method of not getting hit, basically.
So, since we're airing some grievances, I will say my one big complaint with the entire Souls series is that as an action third-person RPG, there is such a fucking reliance on farming, especially towards end game, that really kills a lot of the funness of this series.
Like
Unless
where?
you do glitches or whatever.
Well, like,
but yeah,
you know, say you want to
have
level up your weapon to the max level, it's going to take so much asinine
You have to
killing
go
of the same
to
enemy
one
to get that
area,
one chunk.
probably clear out the whole area to get one chunk. But oh wait,
Maybe.
you need 10 chunks.
Maybe you get that one chunk.
Yeah.
Even the drop rate is
That's
so
true.
minuscule. It's not like something that you can go fight a guaranteed hard enemy and get that. It's
Well, and that goes back to my thing is like, you know what? You fix that problem, and then you have a game that's more accessible to people,
There's just
and then it still
so
has the
much
same
farming.
difficulty.
Like, and
you
I'm-
don't have to farm.
I'm okay with farming, especially in an RPG. In this game, all of them are, I guess, an RPG in
Yeah.
a sense, but it's so non-traditional in the way that it is an RPG that hardcore reliance on farming gets grindy. I mean, to the worst degree.
They did fix one thing with the weapon upgrades was that before like the DLC came out, there was only one, like basically the Titanite slab of this game is the Blood Rock.
Yeah.
And there's only one of prior to the DLC. There's only one in the entire game, and it was in a not super out of the way place, but it wasn't something you would just stumble on. You know what I mean? Like you had to kind of know where it was, I think. And when they put the DLC out, there's another one in that plus like a shitload because there's new weapons in it too. So
they
they're like,
want
well,
you
we
to
can't
get-
give you
yeah.
all these new weapons and have you fighting probably the hardest enemies in the game at that point with level 1 weapons or whatever, you know. So, and then they also made it where the inside shop would sell chunks and rocks.
okay.
Like now, the Blood Rock does cost like 60 insight, which is a lot.
That is a
But
whole lot. Yeah.
but you could if you went through the game and you were picking up all the Madman's knowledge items, and
You could totally...
you would have
yeah.
it. You know, you might not be able to buy an unlimited amount of them, but you would find them, or you'd be able to get a couple probably. And
Well, thank God for the internet for fixing mistakes that happens on launch games. So.
yeah, so
Well, I don't know, man. I guess as a whole, I would rank Bloodborne maybe my number 3.
Behind 1 and 3 of Dark Souls.
Not, it's Demon Souls, Dark Souls.
Oh, you say
Bloodborne,
Demon
Dark
Souls is
3.
your.
Demon Souls always been my favorite. It's the one I started with. It's the one I cut my teeth with. So
if I was going to have any complaints about Bloodborne, because it's not a perfect game, of course, but I don't like how every time you die, it takes you back to the hunter's dream.
yeah,
I think it
instead
should
of
just
a
take you
lantern-
back to your lantern,
Yeah,
and if you
I
want to go
agree.
back, go
Yeah,
for it.
I agree with that.
Because that game's loading times, they're not as bad as they were prior to the first
At fucking
patch.
launch,
but
it was
they fixed that pretty quickly, but it's still they're fairly
I heard,
long
I
still.
wouldn't know. But they're still, 20, 25 seconds.
They
and
used
then
to
you
be
have
closer to,
go,
like a minute.
Yeah,
I
that was
think.
pretty
so,
bad.
Like, and this is every time you died, which in a game like this you
You
don't
die
want that.
quite
you know?
frequently.
So
And other than that, some of the stuff you said, like the samey areas, that does get a little old. There are a few standouts that aren't like the thing about this game, like what is there, like the art direction and the way everything, the atmosphere of the game. It's just so like I don't even know. It's just
it's
perfect
cool.
in my
Yeah,
opinion.
it
you know?
works
Like,
really well. It's Victorian London.
but I guess.
I think it was a little rushed because it was a jump to a new
That's
console
probably
platform
true.
and new hardware and new everything. So they didn't have as much time with the art direction to make more varied environments. Because I think back to Dark Souls, which is the only other Souls game I played, and I can remember all these very different, vivid things, like jumping into that painting world, and then all the fire areas.
Or
I can't even
Orlando
think.
even,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, like everything.
That
just
doesn't
looked-
look anything like anything else.
exactly.
Dark
And-
Souls or Bloodborne doesn't have the equivalent of like on Orlando or what's another one? I don't even know off the top of my head. But
I
just
don't
Cinnamon
either.
ruins.
Yeah,
which
or
are very
just
based
stuff
off Sri Lanka ruins.
yeah. So like
But it's-
Bloodborne's got
they focus on
city,
the technical aspects
Victorian
more.
city, and then there are different areas
And
like
then
the
Victorian
woods.
City at night, and then Victorian City at twilight.
Yeah.
And then
And the
cave
woods.
area, and then woods area, and then woods area at night with fly people, and then cave area, but this time it's a demon cave area with a yellow light on it. Like it's
There are a lot of little details I really like in the game though that
I do too.
you know I was saying earlier like the player character is meant to I think feel more powerful than you typically would in a Souls game. And
you
like
don't start off as a hollow.
and you get the feeling of that bloodlust that's supposed to be in the character with just like little animation things like when you're fighting Vicar Amelia, if you stagger her and do a visceral attack. First of all, the visceral attacks are like the most brutal looking because if you look,
they feel so good.
you can
too.
see your character's hand like become like this clawed, like it gets bigger.
It's really cool.
And
They
it
turn
becomes
into a
like
beast hand.
pointier. Yeah, and you just like really,
It's cool.
And,
It's so subtle. You would
did-
never ever.
you have to really. I didn't notice it until someone
On
put
the internet
pictures
pointed
of it
it out.
online. I was like,
But-
they had like zoomed in. It's harder to do
I
that on
would've
this because
noticed
there's no PC version. But like in Dark Souls, they can get pictures of everything because they're on the computer. But in this, so it's just like little shots people have taken of the hand. But not only that, but with Vicar Amelia, when you do a visceral attack, it's kind of hard to explain without seeing it. But like the way your character does it, he'll like dig his hand basically into like her neck, and he just starts like doing this, and you see her head getting like jerked really hard, and he's like trying to rip his hand out, and then it's real subtle, and it only lasts for like a second, but it's just like, man, this game's so much. Your character's just so much more like ferocious in
He's
this
very
game.
violent.
Like
so
it's that like I said, your
It's
character.
a more aggressive. It's
Yeah,
a more aggressive
and-
game.
You're not supposed to sit there and like. You have to think about what you're doing, but like. They want you to be in the enemy's face, and that's what I appreciate about it because it's just like Dark Souls. After a couple of those, I'm kind of glad they're taking a break from the Souls games at this point, supposedly.
which that actually will lead me to my final question of the podcast, Nathan. Do you think there will be a Bloodborne 2?
I don't think it'd be anytime soon. I think if there was going to be one anytime soon, they would have announced it already. But
There's going to be an Itogi 3, obviously, and that's what Miyazaki should do.
they're gonna make Ninja Blade 2, I think.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
No, I think they want to.
Do something completely new?
I think they'll probably
good.
make another Armored Core.
You think so?
I don't know. I mean, they talk about that series a lot. Like Miyazaki's always here recently. He's been saying a lot, like, "Oh, we'd like to revisit that and everything." But it's like
I think right now From has pretty much a blank check to do whatever the fuck they want because
You would think-
everything has been.
But in today's
They've
like,
really pulled Bandai Namco out of the gutter.
Yeah.
you would think so. But at the same time, like in the environment, just the gaming like environment that exists now, it's like you make one bad game and you're like still kind of a smaller company. That can really fuck you over, Like
I
They
think
can
at
fuck
this
you over,
point,
yeah.
Miyazaki's become almost like a Kojima
Yeah, I
type
would
figure.
absolutely
He's
agree with
not
that.
quite to that level, but he's very close.
I
he's
only
the
think the
closest
reason
you
he's
have.
not is because he's not so personable, not so out
Yep.
there. Whereas Kojima,
He's not in the public. He's not a public figure.
You see Kojima fucking everywhere when he's talking about a
Yes.
Metal Gear. Miyazaki's just like,
But the fan base that Kojima has, Miyazaki has at least that much.
it's
So
interesting.
I think if he did a bad game, there'd still be people crazy about because I think
I don't think he'd
people could
necessarily
argue
do a bad
MGS5
game.
was
It's-
not a great game.
Yeah.
yeah.
But people are so excited for Death Stranding and whatever Kojima does. I think that's the same with Miyazaki.
I don't think he's going to make a bad game. I just
Miyazaki.
wonder if, if there's not that name on it.
Mm-hmm.
Bloodborne doesn't have that name on it either, but it's obviously in the same vein as, it's basically one of those,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, what do I know about their business plans or anything or what they should be doing?
That's what I'm
But
saying. Do you think that there will be a sequel to Bloodborne?
Well,
I wouldn't be surprised if they did one later.
I think there definitely will be. It's just a matter of when.
When?
But I think, I don't know. It's kind of funny to me because, like I said, I was glad they're taking a break because they've become like this yearly franchise.
Almost to
And
a
if
degree, yeah.
there's been one every year for like the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And like, if any other game did that, there would be like, oh, well,
It's
these fucking
the Call of Duty shit.
Call of
Like,
Duty or
yeah.
Assassin's Creed, they just churn them out every year. It's like, well, I'm not saying those games or Dark Souls is on those games level because I think Dark Souls is way better.
Well,
but
that's the thing. There's a different quality difference.
there's a double standard
Yeah.
there, I think, and I
I
think,
think when quality,
I think
dips,
they're
that's
worried
when
about
people complain.
yeah, and but
I agree and disagree. Because it's like comparing apples to oranges, Call of Duty to Dark Souls, but like arguably Call of Duty games have are as good now as they have always been. If
They
not
always
a little
look
bit better,
really good. They always
it's
play
just the
fun.
easy target.
Yeah,
like that's what
exactly.
it is.
It's the new Madden, basically.
yeah, exactly.
Even though
exactly.
Madden's still around. Now, but the reason
nobody cares about Madden anymore.
the reason I say that though is because I think Dark Souls 3 was a really awesome game. I had a lot of fun with it, but they're already starting to go back and be like, "Hey, remember all this shit? Remember on Orlando? Remember Sigurd?
It's a big fan service.
Remember
much like Metal Gear 4
Yeah,
was.
it got really fan servicey, and it's just like maybe it's time to just let it rest for
Exactly.
a while.
I'm
you
fine
know?
with that. I
Well,
don't
the
need another
difference
one, so.
there is Metal Gear came 10 years after the original game, as opposed to
Well, I'm talking
3
like Metal Gear
years.
Solid 4 is generally just a giant love letter to fans.
Yeah,
of
but
Metal-
like
yeah.
Well, it's
10
also
years and it was
'cause-
going to wrap up the whole series and it's
Yeah.
the goodbye. Like Dark Souls 3, like most of us have played Dark Souls like within the last few years.
Yeah,
Like,
it's only 5 years. It's not even 5 years old yet.
It's not been
so-
enough time to do that fan service.
Gotcha. Okay, I see where you're
Yeah.
going.
And also, Kojima wanted to end that series like every time he made a
Yeah.
game. He's like, "All right, this is it
Yep.
for me.
Yeah.
Maybe
Cool.
someone else will make one."
I'm gonna go away.
And
Nope.
they're like,
Yeah.
"Nope."
So, well,
Well,
I guess. Yeah.
Real quick. So would you recommend Bloodborne to somebody who has not played any of the Souls games?
Would I? I think it's worth trying at least. I can't guarantee that anyone's gonna like it, but like
But you definitely would recommend
I would.
it to,
I mean, hell, at this point, what else are you gonna play on this fucking system?
on the
You know,
PS4,
but
yeah.
like,
Uncharted.
but
Uncharted.
I
Uncharted.
guess, but
Uncharted 4 is fantastic.
well, we'll talk about that another time. But-
We'll get
You know
back
what?
out for that
Uncharted.
podcast.
I like Uncharted 1 through 3, but 4 was like, all right, I'm 3 hours into this fucking game. Am I gonna start playing it at any point, or?
All right,
And
we'll have to say this for another podcast
Yeah, we will,
because I
'cause-
cannot disagree with
yeah.
you more right now.
and then
but we can't get into this because Ryan's got to go take care of his dog. So
all right. So, but yeah, Bloodborne is a great game. Obviously, I feel that way, and
Okay.
it's worth. I think if you're willing to be frustrated with a game for a while, because you probably will be. Even I, as someone who played other games in the series, when I first started playing it, it was really difficult to get used to
it
that.
does to the mob mentality and all that stuff.
Yeah, and the way that the games prior to it had conditioned you to play a certain way
And
for the most
Bloodborne's
part.
deviates
And they're like, all right,
very
well, we want you
sharply.
to do the exact opposite of everything you've been doing. Like, I mean, there's always been parrying in these games, and it still operates mostly the same. But like I've talked about before, just you're intended to be a lot more aggressive.
It's
in
much
this
more
game. So-
reliant in Bloodborne since you don't have a shield.
but Bloodborne might be the easiest one to pick up in that regard because most people do want to just. It's not Devil May Cry either way. You know what I mean? It's not God of War suddenly where you're running in and just smashing on that because you can't because you run out of stamina for one. But also, enemies aren't just punching bags either. They're gonna fight back. So there's still that big learning curve, but I think Bloodborne's a little easier to pick up than the rest of them. So maybe if Souls is something that the Souls games have been something that you've looked at and thought that looks interesting, but I just don't know. I heard how hard they are. I really think the difficulty, and this isn't one of those like get good noob because I really hate that shit too, but like the difficulty of these games is really played up quite a bit, I think, because as difficult as they are, like I said, there's not a ton of consequence for dying in them, and you're not going to have to start
time
the
in Bloodborne.
Yeah, and
the
like
biggest part.
and yeah, time is the biggest consequence. But like
Yeah.
losing your souls or whatever, blood echoes.
It
You'll
means
get
a
so
lot
that
at the
big-
beginning,
yeah.
but
Yeah, and even
it goes
then,
away
it's
real
not a
quick.
huge-
You'll be swimming in souls at end game.
So like, they're not going to send you back to the beginning of the game. You're going to lose, and if you got time to play, you're going to lose 10 minutes maybe. And like once you get used,
Sometimes longer.
yeah, it just depends on the section of the game, but and how used to the game you are by the wherever you're at, and so yeah, I mean, don't let difficulty scare you away from these games because it gets played up because there is that mentality of like, oh well, check out how fucking big my dick is because I beat this video game. It's like it's
Nobody
not
cares,
It's not
though.
that fucking hard,
Nobody
Like,
fucking cares.
You just had a lot of time I put a lot of time into Bloodborne. I got fairly decent at it, I think, and but I still die in it. You know what I mean? You die to bullshit sometimes. It's just going to happen. And it does have that old video game mentality of don't hold your hand, don't really tell you where to go. There is some clues here and there, but like, yeah, it's not really as bad as people make it out to be, and it's not as big of an achievement to finish one as some people like to make it out to be.
No.
Like, it's not that big a deal. It's just a fucking game, So like, just play it and try to have fun with it. If you don't like it, it's not for you. It's not, not everything's for everybody. So I think I've met people that wanted to play them and just couldn't, or felt like they couldn't.
And
it's
then
like,
quit and give
you
up,
really don't
so.
have to, like I said, the Undead Burg in the first one, that took me hours to actually get through that unscathed, and now I can do it no problem, So just check it out.
Well, as a, Nathan, we're going to fucking miss you, man. You sorry son of a bitch.
Yeah, I'm gonna go get murdered in the streets of South
You're
Bend.
you're moving in 2 days or something, right?
Friday, yeah.
Friday, so
by the time this airs,
Nathan will
you'll
be
be
gone,
moving.
and I'll be crying into my underwear. that Nathan
Into
gave me.
your underwear?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
That's the way I do it. No, lifetime friend of the show. You're always invited back, buddy. Whenever you're home, we'll make room and we'll get you on. So.
Yeah, next time I come on,
no more Souls games.
Yeah.
No more Souls games. But
Ryan's just not going to be able to handle it.
I did my one for the year. I'm done. I
Fair enough.
can't do another
Cool.
one for another year.
Cool.
Well, that's how I felt about. That's why I said I'm glad they're taking a break, because I
Yeah.
played Bloodborne a lot, like at the end, basically from like probably end of the year up until the new year of this year, and then like 2 months later,
Dark Souls 3.
Dark Souls 3 came
Yeah.
out, and I was like, am I really ready to? I did end up playing it quite a bit, but like now, if they came out with another one like a year from now, I might be thinking like, I don't know about this anymore.
Yeah.
But
So what were you gonna say though?
about what?
I don't know about coming back.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I kind of wanted to like probably next time I'll try to like write shit down, because
Oh,
I
fair
feel
enough.
like I get like I'll
You're
start.
very rambly. Yeah.
Well, I start talking about certain subjects, but then we get sidetracked, or
Yeah.
I do, and it's just like I don't always complete a point like I feel like I wanted to. So
Oh
it's
god,
like,
yeah, that happens all the time.
Yeah. There's
Yeah,
many
so it's
times
like-
I'm thinking, and it's like 2 days later, I'm like, oh, I want to talk about this.
well, not only that, it's
So,
just like
yeah.
I probably sound like I'm just like all over the place in this discussion. Because
Again, that's
I
more
feel like
this
anytime
game.
I start a point, like
Yeah.
I go to here and then I was like, oh wait, but then that brings up to here. What was that first point I was at? That it just happens. And especially with these games where it's so dense, there's so much to talk about. We could easily do a 3-hour podcast on Bloodborne. I don't
Like we
want to
did
do
with
it, but we could.
I would rather do it on a Metal Gear. Just go for fucking ever. But anyways, I don't know. I think we're gonna wrap it up here. You know where to fucking find us. At this point, I don't want to throw that out this time. We put it in all the fucking things. It's all over the place. So reach out to us, find us, lick a butthole. I don't give a shit right now. Go
That's
eat.
fine.
Go eat a turd.
don't lick
Look
mine.
a butthole and eat a turd.
Yeah.
Like, don't fuck yourselves.
Don't
Not
lick,
right now. I'm not going that harsh.
don't lick my bowl right now, because it's really fucking hot in this room, and
There we
it's
go.
probably
It's full of
pretty
swamp
gross.
I don't know
But no,
how you guys are so hot in this room. I think it is perfectly fine temperature wise.
I think it's not like miserable, but I'm sweating.
I guess we're both kind of large, and I got a lot of fucking facial hair.
Okay.
I don't think
I don't
either
know.
of us is really that big.
No.
I mean, like,
I don't know
No,
what it is.
I mean, come on.
my body's like a weapon, man. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I'm finely tuned.
Yeah, tuned. Anyways, Nathan, you're the best, man. I'm gonna miss you. I guess have fun in South Bend. Don't get robbed.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you guys do a Naked Gun special edition episode, I want to be involved with that. 'Cause
I think we could.
Yeah, we could do
That
that.
I
is
don't know.
definitely doable.
Actually, I don't. I think it's a bad idea. Don't do that, because I couldn't. I don't know what you would even talk about. Honestly, like,
I don't know how.
You know
Leslie
how
Nielsen
creepy-
hasn't aged in 40 years.
well, he's dead now.
Yeah,
so-
but he never aged. But anyways, I don't know.
OJ,
We gotta
that-
shut up, man. Ryan's got to go take care of his dog.
well, just
We gotta
know
do
that
this.
if you do watch those again, O.J. Simpson's role it's just so
Very
weird.
similar to what really happened.
Well, it's like if you tried to watch the Cosby Show now, it's
Yeah.
just like, well,
It's just hard
There's
to
that guy
get
that-
into it because
murdered his wife,
And some other Jewish lady.
Yeah.
some guy. Anyway, yeah.
We love you. That's going to be it. We're going to stop here. Thanks again. And this was Bloodborne. Grind out.